My fellow citizens, I am privileged to speak to you tonight, as I have often been during my presidency, but the privilege of this address is greater than any other in history, as it follows my unforeseen departure from the world hours ago. Today's terrible events in Dallas mark the fourth time in our great nation's history when assassins' bullets have robbed us of a leader, and it was my misfortune to be the victim of such a dastardly deed as that which fatally struck me down and attacked the heart of American democracy. The outpouring of sympathy and support my family is certainly receiving at this moment exemplifies the great strengths of the United States of America, our unity and our compassion. Just as my family is strengthened by your concern and love during this crisis, I know that the strength and grace my loving wife Jackie exudes will keep you, your families, and our nation strong and enable it to heal. I leave my job completely unexpectedly and with much work undone. But the position of president is left in the hands of the person who, among the many eligible, I selected as the one best qualified to follow in my footsteps in the event of a tragedy such as has happened. Your new president, Lyndon Johnson, despite what some see as shortcomings of image, is capable not merely of leading this nation through the sorrow and fear unleashed today in Dallas, but of gaining passage of long stalled legislation which we desperately need. The wisdom and farsightedness of our nation's founders in creating a superb and seamless method of presidential succession is evident before the world tonight. It serves as further proof that the United States was established to be a nation of laws, not of men. If in today's horrific circumstances this ingenious system of rule of law is fully appreciated, I leave this mortal life with much concern that on any given day it has been abided in less than fully. As I noted, Mr. Johnson faces the immediate task of reassuring and unifying our people, but also the pressing need to enforce the civil rights of Americans who are Negroes, as well as other groups. And emboldened as I now am, with a straightforwardness that often eludes a politician in life, I am prompted to tell you that the racial inequality we face is more deeply rooted in what we consider the American system than we as a people have realized. I had hoped to sign my name to the Civil Rights Bill now before Congress, and I have faith that my successor, President Johnson, will sign his to it. But ending the terrible institution of racial inequality will require much more than the stroke of a pen. The United States finally must change its economic order to reward every person fairly and must cease the practice of deliberately using Negroes as workers to pay less and lay off more often. The same is true about Americans of Mexican and Puerto Rican descent and women. Regarding our foreign policy, the United States similarly has failed to adhere to this cherished principle of rule of law, as well as to forthrightness with you, the American people. Just over 2 years ago, I assured thousands in attendance in November 1961 at the University of Washington in Seattle that we cannot, as a free nation, compete with our adversaries in tactics of terror, assassination, false promises, counterfeit mobs, and crises. We cannot, under the scrutiny of a free press and public, tell different stories to different audiences, foreign and domestic, friendly and hostile. As I spoke those words, and media widely reported them, Protesters outside the auditorium carried signs bearing the words "Fair Play for Cuba," "No More Sugar Trust Invasions," and "Don't Fight for United Fruit." United Fruit Company, on whose board of directors CIA Director Allen Dulles sat in 1954, opposed land reforms which had recently been enacted and democratically and peacefully put in place by Guatemala's government. I must tell you that the facts regarding the end of that Guatemalan democracy in 1954 were more honestly displayed on the "Don't Fight for United Fruit" sign outside the hall than by my words therein. The United States has indeed used the dishonest tactics I mentioned in my speech at Seattle, and has used them to benefit corporate assets, not our nation's security. We must have corporate profits, and we must protect our national security. But the two are not by any means always one and the same. Whereas we have not been told the full truth about these aforementioned foreign policy misdeeds and racial injustices, we must know the difference between genuine conspiracies such as these and unfounded, easily arrived at supposition. As I beheld the crackling of the gunfire today, in my final seconds, I realized fleetingly that our nation would be torn by fear and confusion about what was happening there on the streets of Dallas. The speech that I was set to deliver at the Dallas Trade Mart was to include the following words: America's leadership must be guided by the lights of learning and reason, or else those who confuse rhetoric with reality and the plausible with the possible will gain the popular ascendancy with their seemingly swift and simple solutions to every world problem. Today, as our law enforcement officials set about to determine who took my life and why they did it, I worry that such a swift and emotion-driven conclusion could indeed wrongly give what is plausible the status of being possible. Yes, let us search thoroughly and aggressively for the perpetrator and the motive of today's crime. But let us not become obsessed with theories about this attack on our system to the extent that we fail to see that we have been damaged by proven, not theoretical, attacks on the rule of law by parts of our system, which we must correct. I do not intend these final remarks, as revealing as they are, to demoralize you, the American people. As I have attempted to outline in this address, we live under a more oppressive and secretive system than we have been told. But deep in the core of that system, we will find the tools to right our wrongs and achieve genuine democracy. We must look within the tenets of our Bill of Rights and the 14th Amendment's equal protection of the law to find the strategy, and we must look within ourselves to find the courage. Good night and farewell, my fellow citizens.